Admiral Kolchak and Admiral Stark stood over the reports and maps in the ready room on board of the General Alexeyev, Kolchak's flagship of the 3rd Surface Squadron. A few hours prior, the fleet had responded out of their new base in Brest and intercepted an American light escort group, led by the USS Philadelphia, a Brooklyn-class light cruiser. At the end of the engagement, 8 American destroyers had been sunk, together with 6 Irish troop transports, with no Allied losses. However, the admirals were still not contented with the performance of their fleet. 4 Ismail-class battleships had trained their 305mm main batteries on a single light cruiser, and after some debate, it was determined that Borodino had landed a hit that had blown off a good chunk of her bow, but still, the cruiser had escaped. While reports were scarce and scattered, it was assumed that at least one large carrier task force was operating in the North Atlantic, likely out of Portugal or Morocco, covering both the approaches and the Strait of Gibraltar. This threat had to be dealt with, but Kolchak's concerns about their chances was deeply carved into his face. The overall naval situation is somewhat made more difficult by the fact that this one group, and I think I've seen them somewhere here underway, but we only get the occasional spotting whenever Allied forces like these Prussian submarines are being attacked. There's one carrier task force operating around, at least one operating around this area and potentially inside the Western Mediterranean, which makes it rather difficult because we have effectively 3 task forces of our own that each individually is likely inferior to that American group. We've got the 3rd Surface Squadron, which is currently docked in Brest. That is Kolchak's fleet, and they are all repaired, so they're ready again to strike. But the problem is, should they encounter the carrier task force, then things become difficult. We've got the 4th Surface Squadron, which is the old French fleet, which is currently repairing in Petrograd, and the crews on these ships are mostly still inexperienced with the somewhat strange layout that the French have built there. And also this group by itself is not particularly capable. So what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking to strip, once the repairs are complete, to strip probably the République and the Patrie out of this and get them maybe a few destroyers, a few of the more modern destroyers, and add them to Kolchak's 3rd and make that more potent. Because right now we're only fielding 4 battleships, and I think we've seen a larger number of battleships and battle cruisers plus actual aircraft carriers in the area. The other fleet we have is Admiral Kedrov's 1st Surface Squadron. That is operating in the Mediterranean. The problem is, while this is the more modern fleet, it is also a relatively small fleet. We only have 2 somewhat more modernized battleships, as well as a few light cruisers and destroyers. So on its own, that grouping can also not stand up against the Americans. The problem being that joining the 2 would require this to sail through the Strait of Gibraltar, unless we were to try to sail around the south end and the Cape. But then we would still have to pass by the American picket lines in the Atlantic, and we are having we do know that the Americans have more than one carrier task force. So in overall numbers, the American Navy is superior at this stage, especially if combined still with the Canadian Navy, which is no slouch either. And they still have a foothold in the Atlantic from which they can operate with the various ports that they still are controlling. So the first order of business really is going to be to get these the new Okun-class submarines out. Right now we're covering 3 areas: the western approaches, the Iberian coast, and the Bay. I might have to actually add the African coast as well. It is possible that the Americans are operating out of Ireland, but I would have seen them. I think we most spotted them over here. And we'll see if we can split off another submarine into a 4th group and then cover the coast of Morocco still. until the rest of these submarines are coming into service. We are building a fair few more of them, so we should be getting these groupings filled sooner rather than later. And we're still waiting for the heavyweights of the Tsar Vladimir class, which would give us some serious firepower, as well as the Imperatrice Maria class ships. But these are not going to be available until mid-1947. So we're still 2 years away from these things being completed. And we're still quite a while away from the completion of the 2 heavyweights in Petrograd. So in the meantime, we'll have to be a bit more strategic about it, but we do need to eventually beat the Americans back and chase them out of the Atlantic if we are to bring the fight to them. On land, we have the Spanish situation, where we are currently just fielding mostly infantry to deal with the rest of these troops. However, I do have... I have seen a few, there are a few Portuguese tanks around here, but other than that, I haven't seen any armored forces. There's another Portuguese tank division. I think that's about it. So unless they're bringing in significant American reinforcements, then there's a Canadian motorized as well. I might actually redeploy. I've currently got them sitting in Petrograd for refits or for refueling, refitting, and just general breaks. I might send the heavy tanks of Stefan's 6th Army, because the rest has been split off into the 7th. But I might send the heavy tanks back over just in case we need some reinforcements, and we'll bring them around south here somewhere, and we'll get them to assist in case we need something to deal with enemy tank forces. But other than that, the infantry together with the air force should be completely capable of doing this. For now, we have I've redeployed some temporary front lines, and yes, we have a gap here, but we've got plenty of Allied troops in the area. We do need to begin clearing out the enemy sectors here. So we're moving the mountain divisions north, and we are bringing the infantry of Casagrandi's 2nd Army over. I think one thing we'll do for now is, while we're here, is to see if we can... Do we have any troops in the area that can access this? Not really. Might send 2 of the mountain divisions temporarily across, as well as these 2 divisions to try and cut off at least the salient here and clear out the positions near Madrid a little bit more until we have more clarity. And yes, we've got plenty of friendly troops coming, or Allied troops coming in as well, to cover the rest of the front lines. And we actually we are still facing a somewhat sizable number of mixed Entente air groups, including some Americans, including some heavy bombers from the States. So bringing more fighters over, and I think the fighters are more needed in the northern Iberian air zone. Then I can get some scout planes there as well. Okay. And these fighter wings also are bringing some more fighter wings in now that we're holding the Madrid airport. They will reinforce the Western Iberian air zone and take care of the American bombing campaigns that are running there. But yeah, we do need to consolidate, and we need to get the supply situation under control, which is still we're still very much suffering here from the damage done to the forward supply lines. So bringing fuel, ammunition, medical supplies, and food over is a little difficult. The other thing that's happening is that it looks like Entente troops are starting to land in larger numbers in Central Africa. So while we have only been facing Portuguese before, it looks like we're now seeing increased number of Americans operating here as well, which gets me to wonder where these ships currently are. Okay, they have been repaired. And can we know that there are 20 enemy ships in the region. So these 4 destroyers are not really going to have a good time trying to overwhelm this. I would love to send some reinforcements in, but we would have to go around again. We would still have to strip this force even more, and currently just don't have any. So we might send them back onto convoy raiding. What I could do is divert a few submarines. They would probably have a better chance. We get one of our. We could probably divert the submarines. The idea was to lay some mines in the western approaches. But that's also important. Okay, all of it is important. We'll deal with it. And we have not enough forces to cover all bases. We're also still looking at the East Asian situation, where we are bringing additional forces in still in order to eventually open up hostilities against Japan, which is where the majority of the Russian Air Force is also concentrated at this point. So the major engagements right now are going to be here, trying to clear out these enemy positions in Spain and just reorganizing. Spain has capitulated, which gives us a much better position now that we're nominally controlling the area. We might actually at that point just use the troops that are currently placed here to try and cut off and clear out some of the enemy formations. And yes, this cuts the supply of the tank units of the Portuguese tanks here. So we can we have something available. Yeah, we've got a bit. So everything that's available currently is tasked with clearing out these pockets of resistance. And despite the fact that this is probably not ideal, but we'll go around and see that we can clear these positions out. And then we'll have to redraw once this is all done, we'll have to redraw the front lines at Portugal. At the same time, we're also repositioning some forces here for another attack onto the. For another attack, we have to be careful not to lose the front lines here. But I'm moving the mountain divisions up eastwards here in order for another attack on this, because we really need to clear out this salient around Luanda. This needs to be dealt with before we make any further advances here. So these troops need to move, and once we have them in place, then we can. Okay, we're clearing out the last remaining enemy positions here. I can probably use the mountain divisions here to push everyone back towards the front lines on Portugal, and in the north. I think we are. We just got La Coruña to deal with, but other than that, we're clearing that out pretty much. So front lines here are going to be a bit chaotic for a while until all the positions are consolidated. But more interestingly, in the air, they've lost access to some of the airports, and in the overall chaos, I think we'll be very quickly dealing with any remnants of enemy forces here. And I think we are reasonably close to having coordinated the new front lines. Few cut-off troops here and there that need to be dealt with, and we have decrypted Japan successfully, which means we can run some cryptology on the Americans now. So let's begin decryption of the American ciphers. And then we have that under control as well. Okay, these troops are newly arrived, so it's a bit chaotic, but we've got the Govorov's 14th Army sorting out the north here. And I do have to keep an eye on naval battles, because right now this is my only way of knowing where the enemy is. We've got Canadian destroyers operating in the Atlantic Ridge, which is outside. Annoyingly, I think, yeah, this is outside the operational range of Kolchak's fleet. So that probably means that our submarine or attempts at hunting convoys further out are not particularly effective either. So we'll return to probably the Bay of Biscay is no longer of interest, but we'll concentrate ourselves on the western approaches. I'll call the submarines back because they are then within coverage of the surface fleet. We have a few American convoys still operating here, and we've got more Canadian. It looks like the Canadians are taking over the convoy escort duty quite a bit more in that area. Lots of convoys going around in the Central Med, and we might be seeing American engagements in the Western Mediterranean area as well. All right, how's the situation in Congo? Do I have troops in place? Not yet. Everyone's still moving. It takes a while for the divisions to get into place, but once they are, and we don't really know what we're actually facing. We do know that we're facing some Portuguese divisions, but we also know that on the offensive, we've so far failed to break their resistance. We've got some Portuguese, we've got some Canadians. They're controlling a port, so they are getting supply there. One thing I can do actually is I can get the 4 destroyers to the just off the port of Luanda and get them to provide gunfire support for the attack. So let's send these over. We do have an MIO trade. This was for, what was this for? Submarines? Yes, that's the one, is it? Yeah. So submarines, what do we got? Speed? No, this is for aircraft, is it? Okay, not for submarines. Only looked similar. No, this was for the naval bombers. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it's for naval bombers, not for submarines. Speed, we could get starting with okay. We have a building construction boost in here. Naval targeting is what I'm more interested in. Let's go for torpedo impact testing, and I am going to refresh the naval bomber design and get that updated. Okay, we've got the report from the Mediterranean coming in from some Italian submarines that Admiral King, in command of a Canadian task force consisting of 5 battleships and 1 battle cruiser with their escort force, is operating in the region, which adds to our problems, because even just the American task force by itself would have been problematic, but together the two of them are most certainly a lot of trouble. So that is something we need to find a way to deal with. All right, let's send 2 divisions over to take La Coruña, and the rest has been pretty much almost cleared up. And now I obviously have to redo the front lines quite noticeably. But let's bring everything up to the Portuguese border for now, and then I'll draw new front lines here. The advanced dual-purpose battery is done, and I think that was the one I was waiting for to get destroyers up and running. We still have to do the modern ship torpedo launcher, and we do have to do a fair few things in this sector still, but we're getting there, ever so slowly. We're catching up on the naval techs. I've left behind quite a few things in the other tech trees that at this point need to be done, like the T-54 series of tanks as well. But our current major problem is the naval technology. So we need the 130 millimeter rapid fires? I don't think we do. That's 3 and 2.5. and that's 2.5 and 1.7, but they are doubling up as AA guns. So it gives the destroyers quite a bit of AA capability, which if we're going up against carriers is not a bad thing to have, given that we have no carriers of our own at this point. So I might as well switch that to the modern torpedo launcher. Where do we still need some research? Here. And now we can go and design ourselves a new destroyer, because currently we've got the somewhat venerable Vitebsk class. Let's have a quick look at what that thing was like. Yeah, it's a radar destroyer with some depth charges, so kind of a multi-purpose destroyer, but I think we can do better at this point. So let's get a what do we got? What did we base the Vitebsk on? Was it cities, wasn't it? Yes. Okay, so let's do the same thing. So we are going to call this we're going to have to reuse a name here, because I'm not going to call it Ship 132, which I assume that means. So this is going to be the Novgorod class destroyer. Novgorod class. Obviously torpedoes. We are going... it's an interesting question. I think I'm going to go sonar and fire control, because the radar on the destroyers is nice, but I'm not going to be using destroyers for long-range scouting anymore. So I'm going to go sonar here. We're going to go with hydrophones and fire control, then anti-air. And here we can use the level 4 dual-purpose main battery, which is, well, yeah, that's what we want. We're going to get one depth charge launcher and then additional guns onto these things. So torpedo attacks relatively light on these ships, but they're more geared towards being gunboats. That's the Novgorod class, and they have some capability in killing enemy submarines. I just like that as a standard on destroyers. It's not. I could skip it. So we do have good. Good sub detection, but we haven't seen an awful lot of enemy submarines. So what I could do would be to split the designs and use the older Vitebsks. I might do that actually. We'll use the older Vitebsks for anti-submarine warfare, and we're actually switching that into another gun. That gives, and then I might trade out one of these for a second torpedo launcher. So if we compare that to the Vitebsk, we've got significantly more firepower. We have on the guns, we've got a quite powerful anti-air. We're a bit slower, but we've got better range on these things. And we've got better sub detection and significantly better torpedo attack. But we don't quite have the depth charge power. But then we're not going to go necessarily on anti-submarine warfare. So this is going to be a fleet destroyer, a pure fleet destroyer, rather than a multi-purpose ship. So that's the Novgorod class. I am going to build a lot of these. We're going to get probably 3 lines going of these, and just start mass producing these destroyers. Probably even 4 lines. They will be filled out once the Okuns are done, and or if we get more dockyards available to us. Yeah, we're going to. Am I still building? I'm still building a fair amount of dockyards. So yes, we've got a bit more to do there. The Baltsky Zavod MIO has another point available. Can't go there yet. I think we've cleared these. So anything, we actually have to go down the carrier route now. Plus 20 deck size is great. Yes, we'll take it. So that, if we ever get to build carriers, which we will, then that has an advantage. Sunk more troop convoys here. This is either troops trying to escape or troops going in. Some Canadian destroyers out here, but so far it looks like Kolchak's fleet is not engaging at this point. But we are pretty much ready, almost ready for the attacks in Africa, and we're making some advances. We're almost done with the cleanup operations in Spain, so I can rebuild the front lines in Portugal, and we'll make the final push towards Lisbon. Kolchak's fleet has set sail. We have lost the Lieutenant Malayev, but we have sunk 12 Canadian destroyers and 3 Portuguese convoys. So the fleet has sailed out, and I'm fully assuming that we have some minor. No, actually, we don't really have taken much damage. So that's gone better already than the last encounter. And we are now starting to see submarine Okun class submarines operating. I might split off 2 more of these, and that is going to be the 8th, and they will be operating under the same template, scout group template. That allows us to include the North Atlantic. Sorry, I wanted the African coast. Yeah, include the African coast. So we're starting to have the Okun class operating off the Iberian coast, and they are in the process of spotting and using their radars to find enemy task forces, and that is going to help with taking naval engagements more safely, let me put it that way. We've sunk an enemy destroyer and still hunting light forces here, but I'm keeping the fleet at bay, knowing that the Canadians are out here. And unless we know what exactly is going on, we are at strike force, but so far only on medium risk, and the Canadians are keeping us in port pretty much. We've got some additional marine divisions. These are going to go into, I'm going to have to find it. Where was it? I'm going to go into the Marines. Where have I put the Marines right now? Here. Right now, oh yeah, I've got them in Rome right now for the invasion here. So I might actually leave these troops, bring them down to Vladivostok. And we'll leave them unassigned for now, and we'll join the forces. Either I don't think I'm going to need multiple marine armies, but we'll clear out the area here. The other thing we could do would be to take on Palma, actually. And that might not be a terrible idea. So let me get wherever I put that. Let me get that force. Actually, that is not a terrible idea. And we will bring them over to Barcelona for now. Actually, let's begin planning a naval invasion, and we will see if we can take out the Balearic Islands here as well. That is going to be a later operation, so I might I'll join them. I'll join them with the other marine forces on the 17th. So let's get them joined here, which is going to remove that. So I'm going to have to do it again. So from Barcelona to Palma. And this has never worked. You always had to do 2 steps. Thank you, game. All right. So we're planning some naval cleanup operations in the Mediterranean. The fleet question is still open, but we have the first Okuns now operating, and that should give us hopefully a lot more clarity over what's going on. We can also supplant that with scout planes now that we're having, once we've got the Portuguese coast under control. In fact, we might actually already start using the scout wings that we've got here. I'm going to send them over, and I've got a fair amount of them. So we're going to send 4 onto the Iberian sector, and I think it was the other 4 are going to go over the African coast sector. And we should be able to, now if we've got an airport relatively close to the coast, we can assist the we can assist the submarines with these operations. All right, I'm going to have to reform the front lines here, and then we'll take on Portugal. Meanwhile, the forces here are in place, I would argue. They just need to recover a little bit of organization, and then we'll launch with naval gunnery support. Hopefully the final assault onto Luanda. And the rest of the front lines is reasonably stable. It looks like they've abandoned... Have they abandoned their positions here? That's fascinating. Let's see if we can take advantage of that. And move out and see if we can cut them off there. So we'll push over to... I hope it's Lake Victoria if I'm not mistaken, but... I might have mine, it could be this one as well. I might have my geography off there a bit. Okay, with Portugal under threat, it looks like the Americans are taking, and the Canadians are taking over the front lines here, which means we don't know exactly how many enemy divisions are there, but we are going to, I think at this point, launch the attack both in the north and in the south simultaneously. And we can give some fire support from the other respective positions across the rivers. So we're facing one Portuguese division. Let's see how much is still left here. One Portuguese division in the north, and it's not that much actually. It's a Moroccan and a Portuguese division in the south. So I think overall we should be able to clear these out reasonably quickly. And with that, then have additional troops available to us. And we've got the naval gunfire support as well, which is reduced. It's not much, but it's doing something. The destroyers are firing their relatively old cannons at things. The Kronstadt project is completed, and so have the deck conversions, which means we can now begin the Burnt Sun. All right, and we do have... Oh, has that bypassed the deck conversions? It seems to have. So we may as well just switch to the next one. Hang on. It says it's finished, but the research is still running. Okay, I'm gonna let it. I don't want to mess with it. I'll let it take over. It should be good for another day. All right, we'll send the destroyers towards the port of Benguela, which is going to be our next target, which is a task for the mountain divisions. And it seems in the east we're now facing Americans, the 2nd Victory Division, which is completely out of supplies. I think we can cut these off quite successfully. Counterattack from the Americans in the south, but we'll see if we can manage to push them back. Okay, now the research is officially done, which means we can now begin the improved carrier hull. That should go relatively quickly. And we are interested to see what we are spotting here. Because now we can start sending the task force. I would really like to have have Republik and Patrie, but Republik is still repairing in Petrograd. How many? That should be. Why is this taking so long? We have a higher assigned repair queue, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. The rest of the fleet is operating, but yeah, we're getting some results from the spotting, and I think we are starting to locate quite a few task groups. So we can start moving this one to Galicia, and then they can operate out of there, so they have a bit better range towards the regions. Right, troops here falling in. There's not an awful lot left of the enemy, so I think we'll be making relatively short work. We've got the mountain divisions pushing towards Porto, and we can effectively, I think at this point, just push straight for Lisbon. We're going to get the 20th here to fight the southern approaches, together with everything else, and hopefully once we take Lisbon, then the situation is going to get better. Gibraltar has been taken, by the way, is now under counterattack by the Americans, but the Persians are holding here quite successfully. So that's that. How far are we with this naval invasion order? We're still preparing. Yeah, we have to improve our. We have many things that need to be improved in the Russian Navy. Naval invasion is one of them. But yeah, we're making our way through here quite rapidly. Also with the assistance of the Allied troops that are pushing independently. So I think this is going to go relatively quickly. And we are having a naval battle in the bay. Yes, we are not this one. We have this is the power of the Okuns. So we've managed to detect the Canadian destroyer group that was operating here, and the submarines have disappeared under the waves after sending off a radio towards Admiral Kolchak, who now has sent the fleet out to deal with the submarines, and we've got some land-based naval bomber support as well. So these destroyers, what was it, 8 Canadian destroyers have been sunk successfully. We've taken some minor damage, but that has been a successful naval engagement all in all. So I'm quite happy with how the new submarines are operating, and we are about to clear out the last remaining position and take the port of Luanda, which means we should have more troops available to us for the African campaign here. And with this, I think we can. Do we have troops? Yeah, we should have the troops available to try and use our momentum. We'll risk that. We'll send the 8th. We'll send the 8th mounted, and we'll try to cut them off from the eastern section. New aces. Yep, that happens. If we can cut that off, then this should clear out, and we can defend that. Then we can send some troops over to clear out the eastern section of the Portuguese colonies. We have cleared the northern section as well, which means we can now reconcentrate the mountain divisions along this sector, because this is where we are going to need them. And their task is going to be to effectively clear the coastline. And now I think with the Portuguese effectively abandoning their lines here, we actually have quite some. We're beginning to have some territory to work with. We have lost a few submarines to another American group, but the forward attack into Lisbon is running smoothly. There's very little going on in terms of resistance. The Russian troops are already pushing across the river. Casagrande's forces have defeated the demoralized defenders, and the last Portuguese and American divisions are surrendering in Lisbon. And with that, I believe we should have Portugal. Lisbon has fallen. And with that, also the war in the colonies should be over reasonably soon, I believe. Lisbon is under our control. We don't necessarily need to. Yep, the Americans are having some tanks here now, which means we are going to have to deal with the Americans still, because even if Portugal surrenders, that still means that that still leaves the American troops in the area. So we're still going to have to work to deal with them. Let's see if we can push them. Out. Actually, no, there's American troops stationed in Zomba, so we are going to have to leave that as is. But we will see if we can manage to take the town of Lusaka. And where were the American tanks? Here. So we're going to need the anti-tank divisions and position them here for an attack against the American tanks. The problem is they're constantly on the move, so this is causing some additional troubles. But let's just clear that territory out here first. I'll give some fire support. Yeah, Portugal has surrendered. That is great news, but that still leaves us to deal with the African situation. However, there are still American troops fighting on the beaches, so we will clear those out. And And once they have been defeated, then we can... and some troops here as well. That should not be a big problem. Once all these troops are cleared out, then we have a much better naval access here, because we can now send the fleet to Lisbon. And we just waiting for the Republic to be repaired before we can bring the battleships and reinforce that fleet to hopefully start taking on the Americans. One American division, the 166th Franklin under General Arnold, is leading two somewhat demoralized Portuguese infantry divisions, and they have managed to withstand our assault. The problem is we have, in the meantime, cut them off at Lucasa. So they are now, and I am going to need a division here. They are now going to be encircled, and once we have the additional troops in place, then we'll make short work of them, which also leaves a territory pretty much unoccupied south of Elizabethville. So we'll take we'll take these positions, and the American tanks have moved off. So we will see where exactly they end up operating from. For now, I'm going to concentrate the mountain troops, and we are going to try to take the port of Benguela, where they still have reinforcements incoming. Given that we really have nothing better to do, we are going to go convoy raiding with these destroyers and see if we can make something happen. We know that there is a group of American destroyers operating here, and that's another destroyer group. So far the Okuns have found destroyer groups. We might be able to remove the Bay of Biscay and instead add the Western Med. So now that we're controlling Gibraltar, we should be able to get the submarines past the strait, and we should be able to start scouting this region as well. The last positions they could possibly seek shelter is in the Irish ports or in the Moroccan ports. So that's where they can still operate out of. All right, in Africa, we've got the mountain divisions in place. So let's begin the direct assault on the port of Benguela, and maybe that'll end the war. Oof, there are 11 enemy divisions in here. Okay, let's not do that, because we are not going to win this fight. Instead, let's make a probing attack onto the mountains east of the port, which is where the American 100th Century Division is positioned. We've got some fire support here, so we might be able to, as long as the mountain troops are leading the charge. They're still inexperienced, but I think they have managed to take that. And now we'll just need to see that we can make our way into the mountains, and then take them on from there. There is a naval battle here. Okay, our destroyers have immediately been intercepted by a Portuguese destroyer, superior destroyer force, and that is not going to end well for our poor little ships. I'll see if we can get away. Where the Al-Uqsur is limping on her last legs, but I think we have made it out of there. So that group definitely needs to repair now. move back to friendly ports. There are still more powerful enemy naval forces in the area. We have ongoing naval combat. Oh no, that's not spotted. So yeah, we've spotted these forces. We've got Kolchak's group docked in Lisbon, and they are going to begin looking at the Iberian coast and the northern approaches. We'll have to be a little careful. They're going out and chasing American destroyers now, which is what I was hoping for. So that's where they are. That's where they are going out. But we do have to be a bit careful because of that carrier group operating in the area as well. So it's a bit of a risk. But I think if we can whittle down some of these escort groups here, that would help our operations in general as well. Previously, trains intending to terminate at Kiev from Germany had to take lengthy detours via other members of Middle Europa due to the poor state of Polish railways, plaguing the route with delays, as express trains passing through Poland are required to limit their top speeds and even pull aside on antiquated sidings. As of now, the newly opened Warsaw-Kiev Railway intends to pull the two nations closer together by linking the capitals with an express railway, shortening the time taken for the Berlin-Kiev Express from upwards of 48 hours passing through four nations to a mere 18 hours with a single stop. Built to a heightened standard, the trucks support trains up to 10,000 tons and a top speed of 240 kilometers an hour. While it is not expected for trains to immediately be able to fully utilize the potential of the rail now, the high potential for the tracks are intended to serve more powerful locomotives projected to be developed within the decade, as well as the heavier freight trains heading to and from Ukraine and the Caucasus. The railway management body expects to be required to serve 10 trains in each direction at any point in the day, including both passenger and cargo trains. That is great. So it looks like the members of the Moscow Accord, and yes, we're currently occupying France and Spain, the members of the Moscow Accord are integrating further, which is always good to know. We haven't heard from Persia in a while. I think they have abolished their intentions for now on attacking Afghanistan, and they have backed down from the threat. So in the meantime, while we are still trying to get to our positions east of Benguela and clear the sites there, we have encircled enemy troops quite successfully. So it'll be a matter of closing the gap on them. We'll send the 8th in the south to take the airbase, and we're sending the rest of the troops out in the north. We also have another Polish-Belarusian project between Warsaw and Minsk. That is great to see. More projects complete. We can now decide on the fate of France by the looks of it. Yes, so I think now that the battle on the continent is complete, we can begin to make the decision of what is to happen with occupied France. The First French Empire fell to a continental coalition, the Second Empire and the Third Republic to German arms, and not too soon, and so too the new French Republic has fallen to the military of the Russian Empire. The government has capitulated totally and fled overseas. Again, the war on the continent is, for all intents and purposes, over. Again, therefore, the French nation lies defeated, ready for a regime change. With our military occupying practically the entire country, we have full control over the direction of that regime change. Should we establish a friendly government backed by our military? The French people may have had their spirit finally broken by the last war, but there is no guarantee that we will not be fighting them again in 20 years. Perhaps it would be better to come to an agreement with the government in exile, whose envoys have been clamoring for a handover agreement ever since the fall of Paris. So we could create a French government in Paris, and we'll create the newly liberated French Republic. France has had a violent history in the past years, since they've been the major battleground in the Weltkrieg. Afterwards, they have been the government has fallen, and syndicalists had taken over for the Commune of France, which had then been overrun by the revanchist monarchists to restore the French Republic afterwards out of Algeria, which then has joined foolishly Portugal in their conquest, or in their attempt at fighting against Russia, which did not go so well. So now we've got a wild mix of left-leaning syndicalists, of old monarchists, revanchists, and everything else. And I think the best way for the French to sort that out is to have their own government. So yes, French government in Paris sounds like the right way to do this. So France now exists, and we've got a few territories here and there that are still under occupation, which means that I can also now divert operatives that were previously working on resistance problems to more pressing needs. And I actually have one operative now that's now free here, so we're going to send him to occupied territory as well. Okay, just to keep the overall resistance under control. So now France, the new government of France, is now a democratic country, and all these different factions will have to live with the fact that they're now going to have to start voting and solving their differences in the parliament and in the electoral process, rather than in the battlefield. So hopefully we can finally bring some peace to the French. Malta as well can be liberated now, so let's get that done. Yes, Malta will be liberated and will be independent. So the Maltese can now do these things themselves, and we are clearing out the last remnants of the Entente in the Mediterranean, and soon hopefully peace returns to this area as well. The North African states have so far refused to join the Moscow Accord, which is understandable because they know full well that that would mean that they will get dragged right back into the fighting. So if we are to take on Morocco, we will have to do a naval landing across the strait out of Gibraltar. All right, let's see if it's paying, if the risk is paying off to take on this destroyer group here, or if we are going to see the American Navy coming out. So that would be another question, and the answer is nope. 12 American destroyers sent to the bottom. We've taken a bit of damage to our light forces, so we are going to have to send the fleet back for repairs. And yeah, we'll get them back for repairs now in friendly ports, and then I think we'll wait for the République and the Patrie to join us once these are finished as well. Okay, that means we have taken the position east of Benguela, and I think we can make some more rapid advances now. We are about to clear out the, let's give some assistance from all directions. We're about to clear out the American defenders here. We've got 2 American divisions now stuck here, and now they are completely encircled, which means that they have nowhere to escape. And I think with that, we will have a somewhat noticeable, let's get another division in here that we have available, some more reinforcements coming in. With that, we are forcing the surrender of General Arnold's troops in the Congo. And we can now, we've got 3 divisions on this line, this is correct. The rest of them can now begin the tidy up operations along the now undefended positions here. So troops are moving across the land. We'll cut through the enemy positions basically, and make sure that they're not escaping. Spotting, it's still a destroyer group. I haven't spotted the fleet, so I don't know exactly where they are. I am going to have to be somewhat cautious. We've got American destroyers operating here, and the submarines have managed to coordinate with the Russian naval bombers. So we're actually doing some damage to the enemy destroyers here with the land-based aircraft, and will help in any way possible. Okay, fleet's repairing, and I will begin removing troops from the... Yeah, I don't need the troops here anymore. I will probably leave Casagrandi's Second Army for now in Spain, just to have some firepower here in case we need it. That's also Casagrande, so that goes in there. We've got Ungarn Sternberg's Fifth Army, which is now no longer needed here. But should Persia become uppity, that would be... well, we've got troops here. So I think for now it's not a major problem. No, he might be better suited in the Asian theater at this point. Because we do have some mountainous regions here where he could be of help, I think. So let's add him to the Asian theater, and we will deploy him. Yeah, we'll deploy him around. We'll get him to reinforce near Vladivostok for now. So we've got additional divisions coming in, and with that we can concentrate on the operations in Portugal, in Congo, where we, I think, will be able to, if we are doing this quickly, might be able to encircle the enemy. So we'll launch a divisionary attack on Benguela to force the defenders. What have we still got there? Yeah, there's still 9 divisions there. So we'll try to get the 24th and the 27th Mountain to fight their way through around and cut off the defenders in the port, because if we can take the port, that cuts them off from reinforcements. And we will see if we can manage to cut off and destroy the majority of the American reinforcements. The rest of the enemy troops here is basically cut off. We get some defenders along onto the front line. In fact, actually, we don't need, because nobody can attack from there. This is all we need. I don't think this is accessible except from Tanzania or from Azania, where we have friendly relations. All right. So troops here are going to attempt and cut off the retreat. In fact, actually, we have managed to push out the enemy from the north faster than we could make our way through. So I guess in the end, they will lose the port. They will lose the port either way. So we've lost 10 naval bombers, but we have managed to sink 3 destroyers as well as a few convoys. So that's the bombardment of enemy naval forces is definitely whittling down the enemy destroyer forces in the area quite successfully. So that's a good sign. And we are 85% on the Republik. Rest of the fleet is still repairing, so we'll get that underway as well. I've got Govorov's 14th Army as well. I might bring them over to Asia for now as well. I don't want to strip Europe completely, but I might bring them in case we are facing significant fortifications. It might be worth bringing him for the assault against Beijing, because there might be. I think this line used to be this used to be fortified, so this could be a specific operation for the 14th Army under Govorov. I do have a little bit of command power at this point. I'm going to have to. Yeah, I still have the air supply running. That's why. I was wondering why my command power was ticking so low. That's because I forgot about this air group here. That's why. Okay, we've got some aircraft in Nigeria, which we no longer need here, so we can bring these for now. We can bring these back to. We'll bring these back to Russia, and we'll see if we have any new deployments. The same goes for these forces. We don't actually need these here anymore. And we can bring these back to Russia as well for the time being. We've still got some scout groups here, which can cover the naval zones quite successfully, and we'll bring these over towards the Lisbon airport, which has a better coverage. All in all, the range is too short on these, so we do need to do something about that. Oh yeah, we can invite we've got more fates to do. We can, where was it? We'll do that. I should be able to invite the return French lands. I'm not at peace, so I can't return the lands. But Oh, here, we can invite the Fourth French Republic to the Moscow Economic Council and Malta as well. So let's do that. And then we'll have to deal with the rest of the occupied territories. So let's get that sorted. I think given the complex situation in France, it's probably not a terrible idea to create a few smaller satellite states around a core France that are going to be able to forge their own path. That gives people a bit of mobility within sort of a sympathetic cultural area if they're unhappy with one or the other. So we'll liberate Brittany. We have Pas-de-Calais, which, that I'm actually going to have to look up. The Wallonians would like that as well. But it is inherently, I think it is inherently something that the French are claiming. So I think, we'll return that to France. We have Savoy, which is going to be over there. Savoy is, I think, also claimed by the French, actually by the Swiss, the Upper Savoy. I would have thought that I could hand that to the Swiss actually, but I'll have a look. What's the best decision here? Yeah, I think we're returning Savoy to the Italians actually, because there had been some really fishy things going on with potential plebiscites that were very rigged, and traditionally the House of Savoy obviously was part of the Italian nobility, or I think going in that direction. So no, we're giving that to the Italians. And if they want to vote for independence in the future, they can do that. We've got Roussillon. We can only give that back to France, so we will be doing that. That'll clear that out. Labour, which is over here, and I think that'll go back to France as well. And Nice. Nice is another of those interesting questions. Does that go to France or to Italy? I'm going to have to look that up as well, given that I decided for Savoy to go to Italy. Nice, I think, had a similar thing where there were some interesting votes happening where the British had something to say in the 1800s when it came to the Italian reunification, from memory. Yes, Nice will return to its Italian roots as well. The whole rigged votes, the change of official language and all that is not going to stand. And hopefully we've righted some historical wrongs. We're still controlling this area, but what else can I do here? That's recruitment decisions, that's why. So let's get that out of the way, and we can... what we can do, however, is Mediterranean trade. We can now begin. We can now begin creating a Mediterranean trade organization. We still have to deal, obviously, with Sardinia, but I think we're getting there. And so far, I think the submarines have not managed to spot anything else than the destroyer group. So it is entirely possible that the Americans have actually left and we've just got destroyer groups here to deal with. It looks, we're seeing much lower numbers now. So it might be that we've still got some enemy forces around the western approaches. But I'm not seeing the numbers anymore reported from commercial shipping that we had seen. So it is entirely possible that either the American fleet has left to Ireland. Are we covering the western approaches? Yes, we are. But so far, we've only spotted destroyers. So it is entirely possible that the Americans have after the fall of Gibraltar, have run away. We also, now that we are having partial control of the strait and the guns at Gibraltar, they are actually, given that the strait's now contested, they can no longer pass through, which I think has reduced the amount here quite noticeably. So that means we can probably add the whole of the Mediterranean to this task force. And I am going to need additional. Yeah, we're going to go aggressive now with the first fleet here under Kedrov. I am going to, I think, send. We'll keep the scouting. We'll keep the scouting like this for now. I do want to cover the approaches just in case they reappear. No, we'll keep it like this for now. But hopefully we can begin using the fleet here more effectively, because this is all well within range, and we should be able to begin taking on, clearing out the last of these enemy destroyer forces in the area. So taking Gibraltar has caused quite a bit of chaos for the naval operations. All right, let's get back to the land operations, where we have a Russian-French trade agreement. We're drinking to that. Everybody their own favorite beverage of choice. And the news is closing very rapidly for the around the last American and Portuguese divisions. There we go. That were operating in this area. So we can now begin. The cleanup operations here and push them back, and then eventually force a surrender. And that also basically leaves, I think, the rest of the area pretty much under our control. We're still marching towards the port of Benguela, but we have taken it. The Canadians are still trying to retreat. We've got some American troops here, and some divisions have retreated towards the port of Mossamedes, but that is three American divisions as well as one Portuguese division. But they are, in fact, actually, we might do this more smartly. We'll try to cut them off from further retreat, and then we can launch a multi-pronged assault once we have cut off these exhausted forces on all sides. This fight appears to have stopped. Okay. Let's already clear out the last remaining American positions there. New Hampshire National Guard. But I think we can bring additional forces in there relatively easily. Okay, I do have to keep a little bit of an eye on. Okay, the Canadian group is okay. So we know that the Canadian battle group is operating in the Western Mediterranean, but they can no longer get out. So this is great news. They've got 5 battleships, a battle cruiser, 5 light cruisers, and 19 destroyers. So that's 6 ships. That is still a viable screening force. So that means this is a smaller force, but they're still operating in the Western Mediterranean. We are sinking the last remaining American destroyers from the air here without much trouble. So I think what we can do is we can redirect the naval bombers. We'll bring them. Do we have an actual viable airport rather than the? Yeah, I'm going to build up the air base in probably in Valencia. Let's prioritize that, and then we can actually begin air operations against that fleet. So, given that they are out of the picture, I'm going to remove the Western Med again. So we're not going to go into active combat operations against them. We have taken out 2 American destroyers here. So I think we also probably have some repairs to do. No, actually, fleet's in good shape. I'm going to get the minor repairs on some of the ships. I'm just going to get any repairs done. And then we will begin air operations against the trapped Canadian fleet, whereas the Americans seem to have completely retreated. So that is excellent news. And that means the Mediterranean theater is now in big trouble from their perspective. Naval combat off the Iberian coast, it's just a single American destroyer. I think he actually lost, he lost that fight against the USS Owen has encountered some of our submarines. And these are Okuns. So the destroyer has very quickly realized that these submarines are not to be trifled with, and is actually trying to retreat now. Fleet docked here. We're gonna enact any repairs. Any repairs necessary? No repairs necessary. So we're gonna get that fleet back on strike force. I think the Americans are no longer operating in the area. So we'll get that fleet back operational. That should clear out the Eastern Atlantic positions. And once we've got the Mediterranean cleared, that rests. We should be able to take Sardinia if this Canadian fleet isn't going to cause us any trouble. Then we can, I think, we can wrap up operations there relatively quickly. Now the question is, can the 24th Mountain make it here and cut off Mossamedes from any kind of support? Besides the Baltics, it can be argued that White Russia suffered the greatest from German occupation culturally. The Germans went to great lengths to try to separate it from the Triune Russian nation. And in perhaps one of the worst crimes of this separation, the Minsk government even went as far as to Latinize the Belarusian language. Mass literacy programs were also carried out with the limited funding that was available, leading to more widespread use of the language itself and thus the Latin alphabet. That needs to be fixed. There can be no question of what is necessary. The local Belarusian government executive committee has decreed a return to Cyrillic as the official script for the Belarusian language, which it was for centuries until the German occupation. While in the short term the reintroduction of Cyrillic may come with its difficulties, it is a worthy price to pay. We cannot afford a separate and anti-Russian Belarusian identity to form again. They are to be forever part of our union. So, done. That's underway. I don't think we actually have any resistance problems. Yeah, we have no resistance issues here. We have some minor ones in Spain, which we're currently still occupying, but that is... we can invite Brittany now to the Moscow Economic Council, and we can decide on the fate of Lille. That was a question again. That was a question about Wallonia. So I'm going to have to look into that. Yeah, there's definitely some Dutch history there, but I think that is so long ago that at this point it'll be better to grant it to the French Republic, to France rather. They do have cores there, so Lille returns to France. I think any sentiment there would of any separate sentiment there would be significantly outdated at this point and would be against the will of the people. All right, I've got one more decision left. Okay, that's once more one of the recruitment ones, so we can skip that. I wish I could permanently disable that. And that leaves us just with a few positions here to clean out, where the Americans are still resisting. The New Hampshire National Guard is still resisting quite noticeably, and I am just not getting to it. What happens in Moscow? News from Moscow. The emperor, busy with public and state affairs for the last 10 years, did not have an empress. Due to the family's growing concerns about an heir, he finally decided to propose to Leonida Bagration Mukaransky, a young woman from the sideline of the Georgian kings. They met several years ago at one of the state parties, and from that time on, they discovered that they had a lot in common, and their relationship gradually grew into something more than just friendship. Although the emperor initially feared that some hardliners would not approve of the union due to Leonida's previous divorce and the fact that she did not belong to a sovereign ruling family, he eventually decided to propose. The ensuing uproar from monarchists and legalists was quickly rejected by the emperor, who simply declared the laws and succession obsolete and decided to ignore them. Public opinion is divided. Citizens are not particularly concerned about such laws, but monarchists and even some politicians accuse the emperor of childishness and outright violation. Despite this, today the wedding took place in the Kremlin Cathedral. Vladimir and Leonida exchanged rings 3 times. They knelt and exchanged wedding vows, holding wedding crowns above their heads. After they were led around the lectern, they knelt and kissed the golden cross, and with the last prayer, Vladimir and Leonida were declared husband and wife. After this, celebrations were announced throughout Russia by the emperor, who hoped to strengthen public support for his move and overcome the monarchists' dissatisfaction with the choice. -2% base stability. The laws are from 1820. When was the last time you looked at them up? Russia at this point is a stable democracy, and I think we can work with that quite effectively. It looks like the Greek are actually landing in North Sardinia, which means we are probably poised to, if I can actually locate, here we go, are probably poised to, no, we still need to prepare. We're still preparing. Russian naval landing principles are very outdated, so that's something we definitely need to do something about once the naval research is completing. But maybe the Greek are actually beating us to it. We will see. We have sunk most of the American destroyers covering the area, and that means the Greek are actually landing against Sardinian. There are Americans here though, so this fight, that gives us a relatively good idea what we're facing. So there are 18 enemy divisions here, which means we are probably going to need. We might actually need additional troops here to clear out the mountains. Get me 6 mountain divisions, and we are going to have them parked in Rome for the time being. These will reinforce once the Marines have secured the ports. These will reinforce and help with clearing out inland. Ungarn Sternberg can dispatch some of these forces. Okay, last resistance of the Americans in Congo, where I think we have isolated most of the enemy forces here, so we can begin clear out operations. I think the bulk, that's 6 enemy divisions. The 2 Americans, an Irish, a Canadian, a Portuguese, and 2 Portuguese divisions. That's the majority. We're still working on encircling the rest of them in the hinterland, and then it'll just come off to the eastern parts that need to be cleared out. But then that war is going to be complete as well. Meanwhile, Latvia lacks sufficient arms. They requested several thousand small arms inexistent. Latvia at this point is part of the Moscow Accord. I don't see why not. And yes, it is probably unpopular to have them rearm, but I have trust in our democratic institutions here that this isn't going to be a problem. All right, let's finish off how far are we away from the burnt sun? Still a few more days, and I do have to keep an eye on the naval combat. That's the Canadian group hunting our submarines here. They're all in good shape as well, so the ships aren't damaged or anything. So that is going to be a problem. Once we have established an actual viable airport in Valencia, then I'm going to send the naval bombers over, and we'll deal with that more effectively. We have sunk a lone American destroyer operating in the area, and we have we've got the fleet I think the fleet's got the approaches reasonably well under control at this point, which also means that we can probably add the African coast to that. So we've got the western approaches, Iberian coast and African coast. That covers the whole remaining foothold of the Entente in the region. We've got the The Americans seem to have left, and we've got a Canadian battle group trapped in the Mediterranean, which we will begin taking. We will begin taking on as soon as we have air cover available. Meanwhile, the last remaining enemy forces are being forced to capitulate here, and that means I can already begin to add noticeable numbers to the eastern border, so we can begin planning liberating the last territories there. So we'll include all of these divisions on the offensive. All right, I think the Americans south of Benguela have been defeated, which means we can now actually already begin offensive operations here. Two more. They have lost their commander, and I think they will be eliminated rather quickly. Last remaining forces here have been eliminated, and I think that is pretty much the end of the American expeditionary forces in Africa. Let's have a look at the losses they have taken. Noticeable, I would argue, quite noticeable. Whereas the total losses of the Russian Empire so far amount to 16,000 men. The enemy has lost well close to 2 million forces. So overall, I would say this has been a massively successful operation. It was some of the allies that have taken some slightly more higher losses. And the Americans have managed to land forces. We're going to in Albania. We're going to let the Greeks deal with that. Who have managed to make some landing in the north here. But I think given the sheer amount of American forces present, this is going to be a reasonably hard operation for them. Unfortunately, our own landing operation is still 12 days away from being available, but I think we have cleared out the last remnants of the American destroyers at this point. And I think the escaping destroyers here have been taken out by the Air Force, which means we can begin sending them. We can send 5 wings over, at least to 4 wings to Valencia, and have them start attacking the Western Mediterranean. We've got the Okuns. They're currently being chased by the Canadian fleet. We've got the Okuns in the area, and which means we should be having successful spotting operations. We should be having successful spotting operations happening here, and that'll allow us to eventually, once this fleet has been softened up from the air, then this will allow us to take them out, and then we have full control over the North Atlantic. All right, the Congo operations are about to conclude, and I think all in all, a very successful operation so far. In the next episode, we will focus on the attack in Asia to bring the Japanese to heel, and then the Eurasian continent, except for Ireland and Morocco, has been pretty much liberated from Entente footholds and will bring the battle to the Americas.